Well, good morning again, YouTube. I've got this 360 Mopar, and I've got an AFB on here, and it had this old Edelbrock Performer Plus manifold, and I'm going to put this adapter on it. This is a spread bore to a square bore adapter plate. The reason I'm putting it on it is because the edge of the carburetor here just barely touching the manifold. I've got a gasket on it. It's apparently not leaking, or at least I sprayed some stuff on it and it didn't change the idle much. But I got this plate, and it matches both of them. These are a little tricky. You notice there's 4 holes in here. It uses Allen heads to bolt it down to the manifold, and then you have a bolt sticking up, so you have a carburetor stud. And I've just got bolts holding this carburetor on right now. This was always a temporary sort of fix, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this carburetor off of here, and we're going to put this spacer on, and I'll kind of show you the sequence or the way that it goes on the best. So let me undo a lot of this stuff here, and we'll get this carburetor off. I've got the carburetor off, just set to the side. And if you notice here, this is the old spread bore pattern, and that'll match up to our adapter right here. So I'll get the right gaskets in it. We're going to put studs in this, and bolts sticking up. These will be Allen heads that hold it onto the manifold, and a bolt sticking up. I'll show you how that goes together. You can see on the gasket here that the inside bolt holes are where this gasket's going to line up. So I'm just going to have an Allen wrench down in here, or Allen head. It's going to sit down below the surface, and then on this side here we're going to put a bolt in it like so. It's going to be below the surface, and that'll stick up for our carburetor stud. So I'll go ahead and put these together and set it on here, and I'll show you how this bolts on. Well, this is just a little tricky, but what I use is I just put a little piece of tape on it, on the bolt, just so it don't fall out until I get my plate flipped over. And then I started these Allen bolts down in here, and I've already tapped this manifold, so the threads are all nice and clean. I've got it on where it goes. Now I'll torque this up, and then we'll put our top gasket on and the carburetor. Alright, this gasket goes on. We've got this all torqued down good. Of course, these are aluminum manifolds, so don't get too crazy with it. You've got a good gasket. The gasket's going to do the sealing, and if everything's all flat, you shouldn't have any trouble or leaks. So don't get too carried away and strip out your manifold. Now put the carburetor on, and we'll bolt it. Well, I set the carburetor on it. We got a little problem here. This stud here has to hold this throttle bracket, and they when they come up inside this adapter, there's just barely enough room to get a nut on here. So I'm going to have to take this whole thing loose and put a longer bolt right here in the corner so it'll come up far enough to get my plate on and a nut. See if we can find a better. Well, here's the bolt that came with it, and here's the one I'm going to put in. Looks like these are metric thread. This is American, so I'm going to have one bastard nut on there. I just slid it off to the side there so I can get that one bolt in, and everything else is going to drop out. Alright, carburetor's on. The kit, these bolts could probably be 4 or 5 threads longer. I maybe should have done something about that. I could put all bolts in like this so I could get a washer on it. But these things are too close to put on a washer, and they're tightening up about half of the nut. That wouldn't be any good if it was on anything that really had any stress on it. But since it's just a carburetor, all it's got to do is squash it enough to make that gasket seal, and moving it up 3/4 of an inch gave me quite a bit of room here for the radiator hose, heater hose rather. And so this all looks much better. I can fabricate me a bracket to hold this out of the way, keep it out of this carburetor linkage. Oh, there it is. I was able to get about 3/4 of the nut tight. This one got plenty tight, of course. And I'm sure it won't leak. They gave me a couple studs. They're both exactly the same, and they won't fit down in the carburetor. They're probably metric, but both of these are exactly the same size, same thread. Why they sent 2 of them, I don't know. I would assume one's supposed to be a little smaller than the other. And the guy was thinking about his lunch break when he threw them in the bag and put 2 of the same things in. Anyway, that's how you put on an adapter spacer. I don't think it was leaking before, but it was one thing just driving, testing something in the shop, and another thing putting it on the road. So I know now that everything is right, and when I go to tune it, I'll know I don't have any vacuum leaks or anything. So we'll move on to something else now.